So I wouldn't roll over, and I told the Prime Minister, do not roll over, hit that guy back as hard as we possibly can, and that's what we need to do.
Señores, Canadá está furioso con el régimen trumpista. Pero yo diría que están más allá de furiosos, están determinados, están despiertos y están listos para enfrentarse al matón de la Casa Blanca. Donald Trump acaba de imponer aranceles del 35% a Canadá. Y como era de esperarse, los vecinos del norte están más preparados que nunca para este ataque, porque ya conocen a Trump. Una de las razones que dieron los trumpistas para imponer los aranceles, porque Canadá se atrevió a reconocer al Estado palestino. Así de absurdo. Canadá no se quedó callado porque desde el Partido Conservador hasta los liberales y todo el espectro político se ha unido para hacerle frente a Trump. Uno de los líderes que alzó la voz con mucha fuerza es el premier conservador de Ontario, y es Doug Ford. Escuchemos.
So I wouldn't roll over, and I told the Prime Minister, do not roll over, hit that guy back as hard as we possibly can, and that's what we need to do.
Poderoso, señores. Para que puedan entender el contexto completo, quiero que veamos una versión completa del fragmento de este discurso. Escuchemos bien.
Going back to your comments earlier about President Trump and the trade war, do you think it's possible for Canada to get a deal with Trump that doesn't include tariffs on certain sectors like auto, steel, aluminum, and energy? And would you be satisfied with a sectoral tariff deal?
Well, great question. You know what's a problem with President Trump? And, you know, we're united. First of all, I've never seen this country more united, ever, in all my years of being in politics, and it's a great feeling, all provinces, territories, municipalities, and the federal government. But, you know, Prime Minister Carney's trying his best, but this guy will say something one day, and he'll wake up, and the cheese slips off the cracker, and then all of a sudden he goes the other way. And you're thinking, how do you deal with a guy like this? Are we hoping that we can get a deal with zero tariffs? Yes. But I always say how we can kick back, and it's not the American people, kick back at President Trump. Let's start onshoring everything, absolutely everything we possibly can. Like I-beams, those big steel I-beams. I didn't realize we don't make them here until found out during the trade deal. Or the rails that are beautiful, their cars are going to be made. Sorry, the street cars are going to be made down the street. We don't make the rails, so we need to start making rails. And start making sure that we make those steel I-beams and aluminum cans. Aluminum cans are my favorite. The Coke, the Pepsis, all the other beverages, the Molsons, the Labatt's, the craft brewers. We're the kings of aluminum in Quebec. They ship the aluminum down, 25% tariff. They get printed and formed, 25% back tariffs. So my question was, why aren't we making aluminum cans here? Now we're going to be making aluminum cans. They're going to lose $1 billion worth of business in the U.S. And same with tin cans from Dofasco. Ship it down to the U.S. They get formed. I had a meeting with the big users of the tins. Now we're bringing a line up here, and they're going to be losing out on about 1.3 billion cans just on the tin cans. But we can build anything here. We're an economic powerhouse. You know, folks, we don't have to take a back seat to anyone in the world, and we sure the heck don't have to take a back seat to President Trump. He needs to remember, yes, they're our number one customer, but we're their number one customer. You hear about all these deals he's making, and they're good countries, Japan and Korea. But I'll give you an example with Japan. He said he made this beautiful deal and everything, and God bless him. But they buy $79 billion worth of products, U.S., off of the U.S. Canada buys $359 billion U.S. off the folks south of the border. 9 million Americans wake up every single morning to produce a widget or a good just for Ontario alone. Those 9 million jobs are in jeopardy right now. We buy more products off the U.S. than Japan, Korea, China, the UK, and France combined. So I wouldn't roll over, and I told the Prime Minister, do not roll over, hit that guy back as hard as we possibly can, and that's what we need to do. And we can do it. We can build anything here in Canada, absolutely anything. From the beautiful trains that we build here, to the planes, to automobiles, to satellites, to jet engines, and the list could go on and on and on. And our strength are the people. We have the brightest people anywhere in the world right here in Ontario. So when everyone goes out, another very powerful tool are the people of Canada. When you go out and you go to buy a product, just flip it around the back and see where it's manufactured. And buy Canadian when you can, anything possible. And I got to call one company out that I learned when I was just 2 days ago. I met with all these tin can users and their food products. Is a company called Campbell Soup. They told me that Campbell Soup's putting a Canadian flag on their cans. They closed their plants here. They moved everything down to the U.S. and they put recipe made in Canada. What sort of nonsense is that? Don't let them hoodwink you. I'm going to call them out again. I'm going to show you one of their cans. It's unacceptable that they do that. Don't try to pull one over people's eyes. Canadians are too smart for that. So please, when you go shopping, I know it's not always possible, buy Canadian as much as you can. So we're going to win this thing. One way or another, we're going to go down and we're going to roll over. We'll keep fighting every single day.
Un dato interesante para los espectadores fuera de Canadá: Doug Ford solía ser parte del llamado Maple MAGA. Era cercano a Trump. Es más, hasta llegó a apoyar ciertas políticas. Pero desde que comenzaron el tema de las guerras comerciales contra Canadá, pues Ford cambió radicalmente su postura. Ahora está hombro a hombro con el primer ministro canadiense, Mark Carney, defendiendo al país. Aquí lo vemos una vez más en otra parte de su discurso.
Folks, we all know this is a serious time for our province and our country. With President Trump taking direct aim at our economy, his goal is to take every single business out of our country, out of our province, and bring it down to the U.S. But I'll tell you, I will fight like I've never fought before, and we're going to continue fighting against President Trump and his radical views. I better stop there because I'll get on a rant. And I'll just tell you, our government is doing everything in its power to cut red tape and make Ontario and Canada the strongest economy in the G7. Our government has a plan to protect Ontario. And I always say our job is not only protect Ontario, but protect communities, protect families, protect jobs and businesses. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And I will not spare a penny to make sure we do it. We were going to protect Ontario from President Trump's tariffs by building a province that is more competitive, more resilient, and more self-reliant. As part of that plan, we're increasing our historic plan to build Ontario to more than $200 billion in infrastructure.
Recordemos que todo esto ocurre tras este anuncio de los aranceles del 35% impuesto por Estados Unidos. Va dirigido a productos no cubiertos por el acuerdo de la USMCA. Aunque el 85% del comercio en sí no está afectado por estar protegido por ese tratado, esto, señores, sigue siendo una guerra comercial. Una guerra absurda contra el que supuestamente tendría que ser tu mejor aliado. El secretario de Comercio de Trump, Howard Lutnick, incluso públicamente dijo que los aranceles eran represalia porque Canadá reconoció al Estado palestino. Escuchemos este nivel de ridiculez.
But Canada, I take it, not so much or not so good.
Well, imagine like the president truthed out that the Canadians put out, oh, we're going to recognize the Palestinian state. I mean, come on, don't be so tone deaf, right? The president is totally into trying to get peace in Gaza, and you're throwing your hat in the ring from Canada. Come on. They still haven't solved dairy. They still have 2 countries on the whole world retaliated against the United States of America tariffs. China, which we all know, and Canada. So you know what? I just don't see the president stepping off the gas. Now, Mark Carney came down, had a really nice lunch with the president when he first got elected. If he makes that call and if he starts turning on the charm and if he takes off his retaliation, and stops the silliness, maybe the president will let it down a bit. But right now, 35%, that letter he sent is surely in the cards.
Ahora bien, volviendo al mensaje de Ford tras los aranceles, esto es lo que publicó. Canadá no debe conformarse con menos del acuerdo justo. No es el momento de rendirse. Debemos mantenernos firmes. Es más, añadió que si es necesario, el gobierno canadiense debería de imponer aranceles del 50% a productos estadounidenses, como lo es el acero y el aluminio. Y bueno amigos, tienes razón porque Canadá tiene lo que Estados Unidos necesita, que es energía, minerales críticos, electricidad, uranio, acero. Amigos, mantiene empleos para millones de estadounidenses. Literalmente, Canadá ha estado construyendo una economía más resiliente, más autosuficiente. Ha estado reforzando sus cadenas de suministros internas. Sinceramente, es lo mejor que pueden hacer frente a un régimen como el que intenta implementar Trump. Y bueno, ¿qué fue lo que realmente encendió a Trump? Y este fue el anuncio del primer ministro Carney. Canadá ha estado comprometido desde hace tiempo con una solución de dos estados, un estado palestino independiente, viable y soberano que viva junto al Estado de Israel en paz y seguridad. Sin duda, pues eso fue lo que enfureció a Trump. Y esto fue lo que lo sacó de quicio.
Earlier this week, the Minister of Foreign Affairs represented Canada at the UN high-level conference on a two-state solution in New York. In recent days, I've spoken with our allies, including President Macron, Prime Minister Starmer, President von der Leyen. I've also had a number of discussions with our ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Ray. International cooperation is essential to securing lasting peace and stability in the Middle East, and Canada will do its best to help lead that effort. Canada has long been committed to a two-state solution. An independent, viable, and sovereign Palestinian state living side by side with the state of Israel in peace and security. For decades, it was hoped that this outcome would be achieved as part of a peace process built around a negotiated settlement between the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority. Regrettably, this approach is no longer tenable. Prospects for a two-state solution have been steadily and gravely eroded, including by the pervasive threat of Hamas terrorism to Israel and its people, culminating in the heinous attack of October 7th, 2023, the terrorist organization Hamas's long-standing violent rejection of Israel's right to exist and its rejection of a two-state solution. The accelerated settlement building across the West Bank and East Jerusalem, all the while settler violence against Palestinians has soared, has also undermined the process, as have actions such as the E1 settlement plan and this month's vote by the Knesset calling for the annexation of the West Bank, and the ongoing failure of the Israeli government to prevent the rapidly deteriorating humanitarian disaster in Gaza, with impeded access to food and other essential humanitarian supplies. The deepening suffering of civilians leaves no room for delay in coordinated international action to support peace, security, and the dignity of human life. Preserving a two-state solution means standing with all people who choose peace over violence or terrorism. And it means honoring their innate desire for peaceful coexistence of Israeli and Palestinian states as the only roadmap for secure and prosperous long-term. Canada will be a constructive partner in building a just, meaningful, and lasting peace in the region, and a future that respects the dignity, security, and the aspirations of all Palestinians and Israelis. We say the devastation in the Middle East is deeply personal to many Canadians. Palestinian Canadians are watching as communities across Gaza face destruction and deprivation, and as communities in the West Bank are annexed. The heinous attacks of October 7th traumatized the Jewish people in Israel and here in Canada and around the world. With each day that the remaining hostages, the remains are not returned, families live in fear and grief. The rising anti-Semitism and words, actions, and violence, including against Jewish communities right here in Canada, is abhorrent. And it's why we're introducing legislation this fall that will make it a criminal offense to intentionally and willfully obstruct access to any place of worship, to schools and community centers. We will also invest in the physical protection of vulnerable communities and places of worship. Basic security is an inalienable right of every human being. We'll defend that right for every Canadian. The two-state solution that Canada supports is built on the promise of Israelis and Palestinians living side by side in peace and security.
Como era de esperarse, la opinión pública en Canadá, señores, lo refleja. Según las últimas encuestas por parte de Pew Research, solo el 22% de los canadienses confían en Trump. Estamos hablando de uno de los niveles más bajos de aprobación jamás registrados. Pero la cosa no se queda ahí, porque el boicot canadiense ha empezado a golpear fuerte. El turismo en Palm Springs ha caído. En Las Vegas, los ingresos de los trabajadores se ha desplomado a la mitad. Florida también está sintiendo el impacto. Y no, señores, el ridículo plan de Trump de eliminar los impuestos a las propinas no ayudó. De hecho, fue un truco tipo marketing, sin impacto real. Fue pura publicidad. El boicot va en serio. Y todo eso gracias al liderazgo de Canadá frente a este régimen que encarcela inmigrantes, ataca minorías, impone políticas fascistas y miente sin parar. Así que, señores, Canadá está haciendo lo correcto. Está diciendo no a Trump. Está liderando con principios, con dignidad y con fuerza. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, darle like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.